Hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday with 3W. Wellness Wednesday is sponsored by 3W Medical for Women, a nonprofit medical clinic offering free of charge or low-cost reproductive health services to women in the Seattle area, regardless of income or insurance status. 3W does not profit off of the reproductive health choices women make. The information shared in this podcast is the opinion of the speaker or speakers. Medical information is not intended as individual medical consultation, but for general education only. Always consult your own health professional for personalized advice regarding medical decisions. And if you're in the Seattle area, consider making an appointment to consult with us. I'm Helen Nguyen, CEO and co-founder of 3W Medical for Women and the host of today's podcast. Hello, Wellness Wednesday listeners. I am here with a very special and dear friend of mine, Joanna Worthen. She is actually one of our advisory board members here with 3W. She's seen this project from the very conception of it. She is also such a badass because she has kicked and survived cancer, which is amazing. And I just thought her personal story with this very aggressive cancer that she was diagnosed with 3 years ago, Joanna?
3.5 years ago now.
3.5 years ago. Amazing. And I just thought her story need to be said and heard by those of you who are going through cancer yourself, have a loved one that is going through cancer, or know someone that goes through cancer, because her story is really, really powerful. So thank you so very much for joining me today.
Well, it is a pleasure to be here, Helen, and I'm excited to get to share my story. I am thankful for all the support along the way and the support that came from you from day one when you heard. And of course, I love what 3W does here and what you're doing for women, and what I learned through my journey, I hope can be a help to someone.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt it's going to help a lot of people. So what was your cancer diagnosis? It's a very complex name, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it.
It is a mouthful. I definitely had to practice it quite a bit myself. Yeah. But on the pathology report, it was adenocarcinoma of the endometrium clear cell type.
Wow.
And that 80% clear cell. And that was the tricky part of this cancer. So we can talk about more as we go.
Yeah. So how did it all begin? Like, you went to the doctors and you weren't feeling well, or?
Well, really, the way it all began was with me noticing, that I was having minuscule spotting. I'm postmenopausal, so that shouldn't be happening.
Okay.
But to tell you the truth, I just thought it was odd. I thought, that's odd. But I just figured maybe this is hormones, maybe something I ate. I mean, I don't know. My mind did not at all go to cancer.
Okay.
And it wasn't on the list of concerns, but I also knew it wasn't normal. Okay. And so I had a couple of days of that, and we were away at a family retreat or reunion, and I knew, when I get back, I need to make a call into my doctor's office and just run this by a nurse. Hey, should I be concerned about this? And so that was the start, and I'm so glad I paid attention then and didn't let it go longer.
Right.
And so, they got back to me kind of right away and said, I think, we should try to fit you in.
Okay.
But they said, wow, we are so full. I don't think we're going to be able to see you for a month. But
oh my gosh.
Then I know. But then she says, what, actually, we have an opening this afternoon if you can get in. And I go, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And the doctor was actually filling in for my regular doctor that day. I still had no thought of cancer, none. And she says, well, probably the elephant that's in the room is this could be, cancer. And I was like, wow, no, I didn't know that was the elephant in the room.
Wow.
And then I was able to amazingly get an ultrasound later that same day.
Wow.
And so things what could have maybe taken a month to get started, that day. And course, by the end of that day, they were seeing an abnormal ultrasound, something that shouldn't have been there. Mm-hmm. And so I was back the next day. They did a biopsy. Mm-hmm. And that first biopsy actually didn't get enough tissue.
Oh, gosh.
And
how frustrating.
That was. They then sent me to a gynecologist who did a really great job, in getting the material that was needed to assess. And fortunately, that gynecologist that day, she's so awesome. I mean, she really took time to say, we could do it this way or this way. If it is cancer and we do it this way, there's this risk that we could be kind of blowing these cells into areas you don't want it to go. And so, this other way is a little more uncomfortable. But if it is indeed cancer, because at that time they didn't know if it was just a polyp, cyst. I mean, they didn't know.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so, we opted to just do the more uncomfortable way and get it said and done right then. Yeah. And then the waiting period, that was probably the hardest time because it wasn't a fast turnaround in hearing. And she told me later it's because this was tricky, it did take more time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But she did tell me, as we were in the office that day, if it's endometrial cancer, these cancers are, hysterectomy will probably just take care of it. I mean, there's not, if it's early, this is not a big deal. So, okay. And
it's still scary though. Cancer is still scary.
I mean, the unknown and just knowing something's amiss.
Yeah.
And that waiting time, I was driving on the viaduct, or was heading down when finally the call I could see it was.
And how many days went by?
It was I want to say maybe a week, which which is a long time when you're talking about
waiting for
the result
cancer
of a
diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've known of others where it's been longer sometimes. So, but when every day felt very long.
Sure. Yeah.
And she said, well, I hate, it is cancer. And so I'm thinking, okay. Mm-hmm. And then she said, and it's not it's a rare cancer. This is not your typical endometrial. And she says, to tell you the truth, I don't know that much about this cancer. Wow. It's this clear cell, and I'll get back we'll have more conversation. Of course, we'll talk about what's next. And so end of call. And I'm just like, whoa, okay, cancer. It's a tricky one, and I had a meeting to go to, so I went and I took care of the meeting. I got home, telling, of course, my husband, and we're sitting down, and I, of course, do it. They probably tell you not to do, but I'm Googling.
Yeah.
Like exactly what I am hearing that this is.
Yes. And
the first words were like, not a favorable prognosis. I mean, I was just going, oh my goodness. I'm going, wow, John, my husband, oh, wow.
Yeah.
But I have to say somehow through those steps, as hard as the waiting was, somehow, I don't know. I guess we all have, when the adrenaline, what do they say? Fight or flight. And the fight was kind of rising. It's like, I'm going to lean into this. I'm going to, this is what's okay. This is what we're going to have to walk through. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do this.
Wow. Well, and I know your husband, so did he fall apart? I mean, I know he loves you immensely.
Dear John, I'm sure, I do think it's maybe harder for those around you. And that, for me, was the part where I cried. The tears came in thinking about the impact on those around me. Mm-hmm. And not that I just know for myself, if I would have lost my mom when I was younger, or my dad to have lost my mom, those are hard losses. Mm-hmm. And myself, to be very frank, I'm not afraid to die. I love to live. I want to live.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to die. And, life is precious, and I do believe we need to do everything we can do to live our life to the fullest.
Right.
And to not walk away from life. But I'm not afraid if that is,
when it's our time.
When it's our time. It's like that's part of
this the bigger picture,
whole part of being a person.
Yeah.
And so, but John, it was hard, I think. And he's pretty private, and he, of course, didn't want to, I think those around you don't want to share their pain on that or what they're going through. So they don't want to put that on top of what you're having to deal with.
Right.
And I think but he has a wonderful, support group and people in his life that I know could be processing with. And so he leaned into that and to his faith. I mean, we both have this strong faith that is super foundational, and it's part of who we are. So
that's beautiful.
Yes, so
that's amazing. How did you tell your kids?
Well, I have to say the very first part of all of this, I didn't tell anyone that I was going in for a biopsy, that I was doing anything, because I don't know. Ultra private on all of that. I was just I don't need to worry them about any of this until I have some information. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that that's the best way to do those things, but that's the way I did it. But once I knew that there was an abnormality, then it's like, okay, guys, I need to let you know that something's going on. And good old text messages. Some things are just really good to say in a text message, because then they can just deal with it on their own terms. Yeah. So actually, some of this hard stuff we actually communicated by text.
Wow. Yeah. They know you and they know your heart.
And of course we had conversations then people can process in their way, and when we're together, which is a lot, and we're a very close family. Yeah. I mean, they're there for me 1,000% in whatever way I was going to process the disease. And that was huge. They were just there for me. And so
it's amazing.
Yeah. And, we can get into some of the other things later, but, going to my doctor's appointments at the beginning, tremendously helpful. They were there.
Well, it just shows how selfless you are, too. Even when you're going through this, you're thinking about how others are reacting to it and giving them space to process it. That's, wow.
Well, I don't know if it was selfless, but it seemed like the most direct way, and gave us all kind of the time we needed.
Just switching gears really quick, are women the only people that can get this type of cancer, or can men get it too?
Well, the particular cancer that I had in its location is the uterus. So, that you need a uterus to have this kind of cancer. Yeah. The clear cell, interestingly, and like the risks for clear cell, anyone whose mother had taken DES during their pregnancy, if that was something given to them, and this was something administered, I want to say, I don't know my years perfectly, maybe from 1940 through 71. What I don't know, something like that. It's a synthetic estrogen that sometimes was used for women who had complications, or they thought would maybe be having complications in the pregnancy. It's possible my mother had that. So we don't know. I mean, but the clear cell is linked to that. And what they call grandsons of DES, granddaughters of DES. Wow. They've seen there's some increase or link to having clear cell cancer in other parts of their body. Wow. So mainly with women, it's like their vagina or their cervix. So, I mean, it's not been researched enough, the clear cell, to have a lot of firm answers. But
from what you're saying, is probably more common in women, it sounds like. Huh?
Yes, more common in I think the first generation daughters of someone. And of course now, I mean, that's all, they've stopped administering that. I mean, they started to research that in some findings, I think, in the early 70s, and then it was just quickly stopped being used. But
Wow. So after you told your family, what happens next?
Well, then, we go into treatment, what's going to happen for treatment. And, which was, fortunately, I was able to connect with a wonderful gynecologist, oncologist surgeon, here in Seattle, who did, I met with him and my family, and he was able to get me in actually the next day. So
oh my gosh.
It went so fast. Once we had the diagnosis and I had my first appointment with my oncologist, it was very rapid.
Was it because it was an aggressive type of cancer, or
I think it was partly timing. I think there was, the knowledge that this is an aggressive cancer, and so the sooner that it can be dealt with, the better. But we'll forever be thankful that he was able to get me in so quickly, because, we don't know. And we just, but I'm thankful for that. And he did a phenomenal job in the surgery. I mean, I healed well, no infections. And I mean, I was well taken care of. Wow. And so that went very well. And then one of the blip in figuring out just what was going on with me exactly came 2 weeks after surgery.
And the surgery was a hysterectomy, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad complete hysterectomy.
Complete hysterectomy.
And he came out and talked to my family, and I remember waking up from surgery and just what am I going to find out? Because at that point you just don't know. You just don't know. And there had been 1 centimeter spread outside of what had been removed with the polyp that was on the wall of my uterus and had invaded about 10%. And so that put me at stage 1A, which is like, wow, it couldn't be much better, right?
Wow.
And he went on to explain, and I'm kind of jumping forward here a bit, that the staging with this kind of cancer in the information he's working with, he said, does not matter as much as with some other cancers. And so we would still recommend, the chemotherapy, the full range of the chemotherapy, brachytherapy, which I can talk about. And then, of course, I had the surgery. So,
wow.
So, that was good on one hand, really good news to know that it was a small spread. They didn't find it in any of the lymph nodes, in any of the pelvic area, none of that. And so it was very contained. Yeah. So I felt, that's really good. Yes. This is really good. Yes. It was contained. Yeah. It hadn't, yes. So that after so going forward, with the first time to meet with the care provider after surgery, they gave time for some healing, and then the surgeon actually, and who was also my oncologist, was away at a speaking convention. So I was meeting that day with my nurse practitioner, and she took so much time, so compassionate. But during that time, she actually gave me, she had misinterpreted the pathology report and said to me, one of the things that we know about your cancer, sometimes we don't know why someone has cancer, but in your case, we know. You have the Lynch syndrome. From what has been shown in the pathology report, you have the Lynch syndrome, which...
What does that mean?
Well, and so it's an inherited, sort of like a genetic propensity for cancer. It increases your risk for colon cancer, endometrial cancer, which I had. Of course, my daughter is sitting with me in this appointment, and they said your children will have 50% chance of having this, all of your blood relatives. And so, I mean, this was...
That's intense.
It was. And, I bring this up because I would want to stress to any listener the importance of paying attention to all of the paperwork that is given to you, how important that is, and to be willing to ask the hard questions, to look things over. Because actually what went home with me that day was the pathologist saying, some people might think this is indicative of Lynch syndrome, but it's not. There was like this, it was the opposite of what I was told. And throughout the report, there was an asterisk, C comment.
Yeah.
And I know so many times care providers are rushed, right? They are just rushed.
Yes.
They have their very best intentions.
Yes, and they're human.
They're human. This individual, you could tell she's compassionate. She cared. She wanted to give us information that she felt was vital for us to know. But that was information that sent us for 2 weeks as a family unit in a very, looking at genetic testing and having hard conversations. And, and when it was all said and done, we had a meeting with my medical team, and I had to ask, how did this happen? Which was really a hard meeting to have, but I think important to be able to have that communication with those that are going to be taking care of you long term.
This is life and death stuff.
Yes.
This is
so if communication broke down here, I just want to, it's good, right?
Yes,
to be able to.
So did you ask for a second opinion, or did you go back to the same people and say?
I went back to the same people. Well, and when in the appointment that I had with my oncologist, and once he was back in town, and we were talking then about treatment. 2 weeks after hearing that about the Lynch syndrome, he said, it's not. This is not related to the Lynch syndrome. And so that was the first I'm hearing from my medical person.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going, what?
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important for any person dealing with medical things to be super proactive, to be involved, to
be your best advocate.
We are our best advocates, and I, like I've said, that surgeon I am forever grateful for. Mistakes happen, and he admitted to that, which is huge for a doctor, right?
Huge.
To say, we were wrong,
and
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I ended up having all the genetic testing just for everyone's peace of mind.
Yeah.
No Lynch syndrome. But and I mean, even before that, it was pretty clear that it wasn't that. But anyway, I'm thankful for that period of time. But for my ongoing care, I went to a different oncologist that I felt would be maybe more, where the lines of communication were better and maybe more in line with what I knew I needed for that phase.
The next stage.
Yeah. And so I did have brachytherapy, which is very focused radiation that doesn't necessarily change outcome, but if there's the one thing about this cancer, there's a high rate of recurrence, and you don't want it to come back in that area because it just complicates. That's a messy area for it to come back in. Okay. So I chose to have that.
Okay.
I declined going the route with the chemotherapy because in my reading and what one of my actually the same person who told me that I had the Lynch syndrome, the nurse practitioner, she also did say this cancer is often resistant to chemotherapy. So, I mean, that was a piece of therapy a piece of information I had floating in my mind.
Yeah.
And then as I did research using the National Institute of Health, their website, which is phenomenal, highly recommend. They academic papers from all over the world or studies, that have been done are available just to find there. And so I did, in my reading, that seemed to be pretty consistent. Wow. And the little bit I could find. And my doctor, when I told him I was declining that part of treatment, his mouth kind of dropped. and he says, wow, I'm just so surprised. And I go, it just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. It doesn't make medical sense to me that it's going to increase my positive outcome that much. And I feel the toll it will take. I mean, in my case, I'm just, and again, my last meeting with him when I had called that team together, he said, you made a reasonable decision. So, and my new oncologist has definitely confirmed that. He said that, they're finding chemo is just not that good with the clear cell. Wow. And so what I did do was make a radical change in my eating and many things, just, I mean, that's another whole topic of what I did, but which is huge. I mean, it was a big
lifestyle change,
massive lifestyle change, and evaluating, what I could do differently to make my body less cancer friendly. And
never heard it put like that. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to your hysterectomy.
Yes.
Because it happened so quickly.
Yes.
Did you have time to mourn? Did you have time?
You know what? It's such a wonderful question. And yes, I actually, that is such you bring back, and I have it in my journal. And I have actually some, I don't know if it was again, text messages or may have been a phone call. I don't remember how I communicated it. But I remember communicating with my children how thankful I was for this place that I could nurture their lives. And there was this deep sense of gratitude for what this part of my body did for me. Yeah. And the life that it nurtured. And
you're going to get me to cry.
And I didn't, I hadn't read anything about being appreciative of your uterus. Yeah. But I found as I was in those hours in getting ready for this, I was realizing, because I never had surgery of any kind. Yeah. And so this part, no, I get it. I get it. I will have tears with you. Yeah. Because, this part was no more. Yeah. And I felt a great sense of gratitude. Yeah. And a loss. Yeah. 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 Good question. I mean, it's good for me to go back to that because...
or it did what it needed to do or provided you the vessel in which to carry your children into this world. And its time was done.
Right. Right. So it's like, thank you for doing such a good job. Yeah. Yeah.
So, especially for women, there's so much tied to our uterus and reproductive system and what it creates and what it doesn't create and what and the stages in which it goes through, right? We get our period when we are in our teens, and then we go through our period, and then the children that are born through that period, and then you hit menopause, and then to hit hysterectomy, it was like, I was just thinking about that. Like, did it make you feel less of a woman at some point afterwards, or?
I wondered if it wouldn't make. I really wondered how it would feel to have such a critical part of my body, a part that, as you're saying, you're so, very much aware of. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel that way. No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay. Yeah, it's like, how did she process all of that in like 1 or 2 days? I'm in some sense, I'm grateful that it happened all at once to kind of get it over with, in some ways.
Right.
And then in some ways I'm like, did you get a chance to say goodbye?
No, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, it was way faster than what I would really recommend for someone too, because I think probably I think it's important to have time to make those really, really big decisions. Mm-hmm. Surgery may not always be the very best decision.
Right.
Or maybe there's more that you need to do to get yourself ready or your space ready. In my case, I am grateful that it happened the way that it did. And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who are listening, this is like my first time that I get to really dive deep into the story of yours. I just so appreciate it. So, to continue what you were saying, how did it change your lifestyle with food? You're such a good cook.
Yeah.
So
I love food.
Yeah.
I always love food. Love cooking. Love preparing lots of food for lots of people.
Oh gosh, this lady can entertain you guys.
I know. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that, did you just start reading and watching YouTube videos or?
I had food from a very young age was always something I was intrigued with, and health. I have to say, always, just intrigued with health and the role that food has in health. And when my goodness, if I say how many years ago, it will really show how old it. Yeah, like 40 years ago, I had probably the first experience of someone, she had breast cancer, had gone through all of the treatment, was not doing well. And she chose, in her fight to live, to do an alternative therapy and went to Mexico. It was really the first time I'd ever been exposed to someone doing something that drastic. And so that introduced me to the power of food and doing something. And I helped her in getting groceries, and she had this massive juicer that was quite a machine. So but that gave me a lot of information that I never had, that stayed with me, really all these years. And then a few years before actually my diagnosis, I don't know, I just had the thought, I'm just curious to find out what kind of treatments are out there, or what's out there that has been shown to work with cancers. I don't know.
That's alternative to
modern. That's alternative, or that could be in conjunction, or that you're doing in complementary and along with. And so I found some materials that I thought, they had a lot of good recommendations, and I read that just out of curiosity. And when I was diagnosed, or even actually at the very beginning when as soon as I knew that this could be cancer, I immediately I have to take this time out on everything. And actually one book that I would like to really bring attention to, because it was the first book that I read after, or at the beginning of my actual cancer, was this Anti-Cancer, A New Way of Life by David Schreiber, MD, PhD. He's a French physician, neuroscientist, and it's about his own cancer journey. He found out that he had brain cancer his whole story is fascinating, but it put him on the path of learning what he could about what we can do to make our bodies anti-cancer, just like a terrain that is not friendly to cancer. And everything that he shares is, deeply researched. There's lots of footnotes in the back, and that helped me change my way of thinking, or it helped me understand why different foods were powerful or beneficial to add. And it was extremely helpful to get going. And then other resources, Chris Wark has a website that he has brought in all kinds of scientists and doctors, a lot of interviews, a lot of encouraging things. I had to surround myself with, just positive outcomes, hearing examples of positive outcomes. And there's a lot of recommendations there of things that you can do where it's not causing harm. It can work along with whatever treatment you're choosing to do.
Right.
And so that was incredibly helpful. Okay. So for myself, looking at stress, looking at relationships too, where is there any resentment or hardness that needs to also be looked at, because those kinds of things can get in the way of healing. Yeah. And then, of course, the food, I went to strongly plant-based diet, just big loaded salads for lunch, for dinner that were highly dense in nutrition, overdosing on food, good food. Yeah. And completely, 100% eliminating things that were not going to be nurturing my body.
So plant-based, meaning no meat?
I took for myself, and based on the research and the things that I was reading, that seemed to be the most prudent decision for myself. And so no meat, just lots of vegetables, many different colors, and fruits. Some people worry about the sugar that comes from fruits, and I think there are so many powerful nutrients that are in many of those fruits, and so big variety, lots of variety, lots of different colors. And
no seafood.
No, I also really took out seafood as well. I mean, occasionally, fish. Very, very rare though, and that was for the first 3 years. And all processed food, of course, anything processed. Goodbye. Sugar.
Low sugar.
No sugar.
No sugar.
No sugar. Zero sugar.
Wow.
No. I mean, and it sounds hard, so because I love sugar. I had a strong, sweet tooth. And loved my cheeses and loved the dairy and
cheese.
Yes. Oh my goodness! Every night it was cheese for me. I mean, love. Yes. But understanding and looking again, reading through a lot of the research that these resources were providing, I had to. For me, it was like, this is not helping my body right now. I want to do all I can right now to help, again, put my body into a healing mode. And even though it's very likely that surgery completely cured my cancer. I mean, there's a high possibility that it completely did. But if my doctors were suggesting chemotherapy and I'm being told that this cancer has a high rate of recurrence in many other parts of the body, then I felt like I owe it to my family. I owe it to my commitment to live, to do my best. So there, that's
amazing. Wow. I don't know how you do it.
Well, actually, these foods taste so incredibly amazing. We've been provided with the most. And we live here in Seattle, right? So many things are so available.
There's so many things that are made in people are using jackfruit, are you able to eat jackfruit?
I haven't, I don't know that much about jackfruit, to tell you the truth. So I've had a few pieces of it maybe here. Actually, I think when we were in Mexico, they were selling it fresh on the side of the road. I think, actually, it was like, they were saying, this is that. And so that was kind of fun. And we were just trying to, when it's fresh, it's really strange. Have you had it fresh?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right?
It's a huge, very popular fruit in Vietnamese culture.
Oh, wow.
And Vietnamese culture, believe it or not, has a huge... they eat a lot of vegan diets because it's a predominantly Buddhist culture.
Yeah.
And so lots of, fasting from very very extravagant foods, and so they've always had to be very creative in cooking with fruit and plant-based stuff.
Yes.
So jackfruit is actually, I've seen it now at Trader Joe's, that jackfruit is now being made into pulled pork. To taste like pulled pork because of the texture.
Interesting.
Tastes like pork sometimes, the way you cook it and stuff like that. But so it's just been interesting to see more and more people adapt to that.
Well, there are so many wonderful kinds of fruits and vegetables that can be used in so many different ways. I mean, I've learned that with just the ones that I've been kind of
We're gonna have to have you back and talk about your plant-based diet, because I'm sure listeners are gonna be like, what is that? And can I incorporate that? Was it difficult for you? That's gonna be
some
so
wonderful
interesting.
Resources out there and so many encouraging things for anyone who's wanting to change or adapt or incorporate some of the pieces.
So where are you now in your cancer journey? Are you cancer free?
I keep wanting to call myself cancer free, and my last appointment with my oncologist, so he was wanting to see me every 3 months. So we were doing this every 3 month check in. And my last appointment, we're going to 6 months, which was really, and I said, because we had hit the 3-year mark, and so am I cancer free? Can I say that? And he said, no.
Wow.
And I was like, really?
Wow.
And I don't know at what point he's going to say cancer free. And what's weird about this cancer, it's hard to.
It's hard to detect.
It's hard to detect. There's not a blood test. It's really symptom. I mean, he does a very thorough exam every time I see him, but it's symptoms, and it's been. Some doctors do imaging. He does not feel that is a. Actually, neither of the oncologists felt that imaging is beneficial with this cancer, which is really kind of strange, right? Or it seems strange to me, because it feels like, well, that would tell me if something's going on. Come on now.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, I'm trusting you on this.
Could this cancer have been detected even earlier through, like, pap smears?
Oh, really? That's a really good question, too. Actually, no, probably not. I had a pap smear just months prior to this.
I see.
Yeah, and it was fine. There was no problem. The pap smear, and even with the clear cell, if the clear cell is on the cervix or on the vaginal wall, it isn't really detected with a typical pap smear, at least from what I understand. So no, the best sign is any spotting. If there's spotting and you're postmenopausal, pay attention to that.
Sure.
And I remember hearing Dr. Rutherford on one of the earlier podcasts mentioning, I think it was on cancer prevention or something, and I remember her say that. It was like, listen
to your body.
And lower back pain underneath, like below my belt. There was a little bit of that, which is interesting because that polyp was so small, but it was causing inflammation.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
Well, that's an amazing story. I look forward to the day where we can shout it from the rooftops that you are cancer free. Yes. There's still so much to say, but we're running out of time.
Yeah, right.
We're going to have you back, because it's still, your story's continuing. I mean, your lifestyle continues. I'm sure we haven't even talked about how it has changed your mental health. How has it changed your spiritual health? How has it changed a whole bunch of other things, right?
It kind of changes everything.
It changes everything.
It does. It's like before cancer and after cancer.
And it's just, you hit on something really valuable that we tell our patients all the time. Listen to your body. Yes. You should not take anything, put anything as a Band-Aid solution. Your body's trying to tell you something. That it's sick, that it doesn't like something. Listen to it, honor it. Call us, folks, if you want to talk to Dr. Rutherford. Any of our medical providers here are available to you. And when we can honor your body with you, everybody wins. Everybody is healthy, and we can continue to be together in community. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I got from you, Joanna, is that you listened to your body, you took it seriously, and then you gathered your community around you, and you're here with us still, which is amazing, which is beautiful. Like I said, there's still so much to talk about, and I'm going to have you back, which is selfishly I'm okay with. So, but we're wrapping this up, and I just want to thank you, listeners out there who joined us today. This was a intense subject to talk about, especially for those of you who have lost those that have gone through cancer, loved ones, people you know in your community. Know that we are there with you, we mourn with you, and that the more we understand how to support each other through these really, really tough moments is what makes us unique in our human kind of community. So please give us a call if you're concerned about anything, if you're having any symptoms or just asking questions, right? It's never bad to ask questions. And it's free when you come here to 3W. It's free. No strings attached.
For more information about 3W, please visit our website at 3wmedical.org. That's the number 3, the letter W, medical.org. From there, you can learn more information about the services we provide, book an appointment, or make a donation if you'd like to support our mission. You can also call our office at 206-588-0311. That's 206-588-0311. If you like this episode, please share it with others and consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay healthy and be well.